Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. A special welcome if you're joining us online at onespotmedia.com. 12 persons have died in the last 24 hours from COVID-19. This is the largest number of deaths from the virus in a single day since March last year. 4 of the deaths were in St. James, 4 in St. Elizabeth, 1 in Westmoreland, 1 in St. Catherine, 1 in Kingston and St. Andrew, and another in St. Anne. Meanwhile, hospitalizations have also increased to a new record of 310. 31 people are critically ill, while 25 are moderately ill. The Ministry of Health says there were 695 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. This pushes the number of confirmed cases to 28,968. Kingston and St. Andrew recorded the largest number of new cases with 202, followed by St. Catherine with 183 and St. James with 63. Now the number of active cases is now 13,479. There's a delay in the second shipment of the COVID-19 vaccine to Jamaica. That shipment was scheduled to arrive in the island today. However, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the shipment is now expected next Monday, February 15. Dr. Tufton said the 14,400 doses of the vaccine which Jamaica has procured under the COVAX facility have been delayed due to logistics issues.
We're supposed to get a small shipment next week of COVAX. But you're right, it is a problem in that what has been promised to date has not been delivered, even though there is a commitment to deliver everything, but more at the back end because of production issues globally. We're also, however, looking at facilities through CARICOM and the African platform. We're looking at some bilateral discussions with particular manufacturers. So it is our hope that we will get positive responses from some of these sources, but there is a general shortage and there's also hoarding of the vaccine.
That should be next Monday, March 15 for the second shipment of the vaccine to Jamaica. Still on vaccines, no need for alarm. The assurance from Jamaica's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa Mackenzie, following concerns about side effects from the AstraZeneca vaccine. Shamila Pullen reports.
It's day one after Jamaica rolled out its COVID-19 vaccination program. Some of the 2,718 persons who received the vaccination on Wednesday have reported side effects from taking the drug. Some persons who have taken the vaccine have taken to social media talking about body aches, fever and joint pain, while another complained about a mild headache. But Chief Medical Officer at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa Mackenzie, says she has not gotten any reports of a major reaction from the vaccine so far, except for mild rash and itching. Speaking on Power 106 Morning Agenda Thursday, Dr. Bisesa Mackenzie says this is expected.
As with any other vaccine, persons may develop flu-like symptoms later on in the day. So, persons are to ensure that they're keeping well hydrated. And if they're develop any fever, muscle pains or joint pains, etc., then they need to take some Panadol. So this is expected. So I don't want persons to be alarmed in case they do develop symptoms.
Dr. Bisesa Mackenzie also said that the reason the ministry had an 83% turnout from the target set for persons to take the vaccine on the first day is due to logistics. She said the scheduling of persons to move from one health center to another to get vaccinated was a challenge.
So some of those will be sorting out today. Some were sorted out yesterday to ensure that everybody has, because we do have the appointment system, and we were able to register new persons yesterday as well. So for those smaller sites, we have to work to get the healthcare workers out and to ensure that they are able to move within the time space.
Meanwhile, the CMO said it will take some time before persons who get the first dose of the vaccine to get the second. She said Jamaica will be utilizing the latest recommendation from the body of experts.
Well, certainly we would have seen the recommendations that would have come out from the the expert panel advisory, and the recommendation does take that into consideration. Initially, when we heard about the AstraZeneca vaccine, it was said to give it the second dose at 4 weeks. But the recommendation actually now says 8 to 12 weeks. So that's when we're scheduling persons for. We're using the longer period. We think, I'm not sure if other countries are now using the shorter period because the recommendations would have changed.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
Concerns are being raised about the Prime Minister and Health Minister not being the first in line to take the COVID-19 vaccine. But head of the School of Public Health at the University of Technology, Professor Winston Davidson, says he doesn't see why they should be given priority when health workers are more at risk. Here once again is Shamela Pullen.
On Wednesday, the health minister rolled out its island-wide vaccination program. So far, about 2,600 healthcare workers and those within the vulnerable group have received the vaccine. But some Jamaicans have been raising concerns about Prime Minister Andrew Holness and Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton not taking the vaccine.
The Prime Minister and the Minister of Health, I believe they should be in the first batch that take this vaccine. Why? They should be leading by example.
I am a businessman and I made the plan to take the vaccine because me deal with all different kind of people. So me did plan to take the vaccine. But when me I say the Prime Minister and the Health Minister want to take it back door or they don't want to take it public, when me go do? Me not going to take it neither.
But head of the School of Public Health at the University of Technology, UTech, Professor Winston Davidson says Mr. Holness and Dr. Tufton do not fall in the risk groups, for example, like the healthcare workers and the elderly.
Because the argument could be advanced that two politicians are so selfish that they want to get themselves immunized before everybody else. On the other hand, the argument could be that the health workers are on the front line. They need the vaccines more urgently than the Prime Minister and the Minister. They're not health workers. They're not at the front line.
Professor Davidson also said that there is no need for persons to lack confidence in the AstraZeneca vaccine. He said the vaccine is safe for use.
In randomized controlled trials, where persons have died, right, in relation to the situation of the use of particular drugs and vaccines, etc. But when the investigation is done, it could, in fact, has no cause effect bearing on the situation.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when you return. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. To a story of hope amidst despair, we look at the struggles of a small hotelier in St. Anne who says he's made expansions as he prepares for when the sector rebounds from the pandemic. Meanwhile, his car rental business continues to suffer. Krista Campbell reports.
A 40-room beachfront hotel in Priory St. Anne expanded and renovated when owner Leopold Williams thought that business was picking up back in August.
We built another small meeting room and a pantry and a wedding center.
He had to close the hotel from April to June last year after the COVID outbreak in Jamaica crippled the economy.
Things that looked like it was coming back because people had started to come again. But then we noticed that later on, as the numbers climbed, we noticed that there was a slowing down of people coming to the property. And knowing that small hotels garnered most of their business from conferences, fun days, and things like that, that has dried up.
And though there's since been a little improvement, he says it's not enough to keep operations going as before, so staff have been laid off.
The hotel should have been filled this week because we had a group who usually come here in the first week in March, and unfortunately they have to cancel. So the last time we closed, when we came, just in 3 months, we were surprised to see the amount of work we have to put in back to get it back to standard.
But while he tries to stay in business with a fraction of his staff, his other business, a car rental, is also losing big.
We depend on the hotels and so for guests to come in and we get the business. But we haven't had any business over the last year. Not even 10 these days. You know, occasionally maybe 1 or 2 cars for the month. Yes. And it's not for long periods either.
He says he's reduced his fleet to about 25 vehicles.
The business have been taking a beating because of a lot of private rentals. We sell out some of the cars since last year, fortunately for us. So actually that is what keeping us afloat because we have a little liquidity.
Cody Ann Barrett, TVJ News.
To news overseas, the White House is refusing to call the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border a crisis. It comes as a record number of unaccompanied migrant children are now in custody at the southern border, and the number of migrants arrested in recent weeks is at a 5-year high. More from the CNN.
Today marks 1 year since the pandemic was officially declared, and President Joe Biden will deliver his first primetime address to commemorate the anniversary and remember the lives lost. But as he reflects on one crisis, another potential crisis is brewing at the border. A record surge of children crossing into the U.S. from Mexico by themselves.
There are more children coming across the border than we have facilities for.
On March 10th, the Department of Health and Human Services said about 8,100 unaccompanied children were being taken care of by folks from the Office of Refugee Resettlement. On February 28th, that number was 7,700. But these numbers don't include kids who were placed with sponsors. And when the February data comes out today, an agency spokesman says it, quote, will likely be historic. White House officials aren't calling it a crisis.
The border is a constant work in progress.
Pointing to previous policy.
We can't just undo 4 years of the previous administration's actions overnight.
But a number of Republicans disagree.
I am very appalled what's happening at the border.
And they're pointing at Biden, who says he's trying to implement a more humane approach to immigration.
The Biden border crisis is real.
President Biden is obsessed with repealing everything with Trump's name on it.
Biden will speak for himself tonight.
In sports, immediate past president and a member of the medical committee for the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association, Dr. Warren Blake, says it was important for him to be among the first set of persons to receive the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine on Tuesday. Renata Brown reports.
The former J3's boss, who himself had contracted COVID-19, says after losing close friends to the virus, it was important for him to show his support for vaccination by being among the first set of persons to receive the first dose on Wednesday. He also hopes athletes will see that there is no need to fear the jab.
No, I think it's important, and the more people see people they know getting the vaccine and see that there are no side effects, that people will be more comfortable in taking the vaccine.
And Blake is hoping athletes will soon be among those to be vaccinated in the coming months.
I'm saying that I'm hopeful that after the people at risk, the healthcare workers, the frontline workers, and the elderly have been done, then we start to turn to the more sensitive groups in our society. And I'm hoping that just like tourism workers, that athletes will be considered among those people who should get the vaccine as a priority. And I'm going to be pushing for that to happen.
In the meantime, Blake, who indicated that he would speak with sprinter Johan Blake over his stance not to be vaccinated, says he is yet to have a word with a 2011 100-meter world champion.
I've not been able to speak to Johan as well, because, the first thing I would have to do is to understand why he's apprehensive about the vaccine and why he has come to the conclusion that he should not take it. I think it has to do a lot with the bad propaganda against it, because I'm certain Johan has taken vaccines in the past. Because if he hadn't taken vaccines, he would not have been able to go to high schools in Jamaica, because we all had to get our DPT shots as youngsters. And when you enroll in high school, you have to present your vaccination card.
As it stands, organizers of the Olympic and Paralympic Games say vaccination will not be made mandatory in order for athletes to participate. Renata Brown for TVJ Sports.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.